architecture is usually in the field of either engineering or the arts. And I thought there could be a real connection, a real point of learning from the social sciences in terms of people. Because at the heart of social sciences is the relation to people. And when I looked at CASBS and the application, I saw the name, and then I was attracted to the word be, the behavior. And that's what I thought, is that if you're looking at architecture from the point of people, how they behave in the built environment, then you can learn. You can learn to think how other people see people in relation to the space, how people interact with space. And that's the sort of beginning of my thinking. Architecture and people then became the reason why I came here. And it also became the title of the book project that I was going to do. So architecture with people, empowering people through design. And what I learned is that how can you learn from other disciplines? The engagement with other disciplines is key to my coming here. When you come to CASBS, you're going to have hundreds of conversations. Of those hundreds of conversations, some are going to stay with you for life. And I just want to talk about two that kind of changed me. And so I was having lunch with a fellow, and all of a sudden we were talking about the idea of how we perform research in the field. And the guy says to me, this sounds very familiar to a paper that I wrote called Amphibian Entrepreneurs. And the person in question is Woody Powell. He wrote a paper, a seminal paper about entrepreneurs. And he says, why don't you read this? So I read this paper, and all of a sudden it opened this kind of whole new perspective to the way I was going to write my book. You know, a fact of a researcher being sometimes on land, that means that you're kind of in the field researching, but at the same time that you can go away and you can practice, and you can start practicing what you're preaching. So all of a sudden you become normative. You are kind of trying to change the society that you live in. And the fact that he's theorized it, that hugely contributed to my book. The second discussion was with Santi Furnari. And he's a sociologist looking at civic space and the role of public space within the city. I'm looking at public space, but let's say from the bottom up. He's looking from the top down. And all of a sudden we find ourselves, I'm working with villagers and participating with actually building public space. And he's looking at how elites form public space. And all of a sudden we have this moment of reciprocity where we can feel the tension that we're actually looking at the same question from different perspectives. And I think these moments of intensity, these moments where you think beyond your field, you think beyond theory, and you share notes, this is an amazing part that I don't think you can do anywhere else. I think the one thing that I will take away from CASBS is you've got to change your mindset of how you think you're going to work. I thought I was going to come here, write a book, be on my own, be very focused. And what I realize now is that you actually got to be like a sponge. You've got to absorb everything. And so my recommendation to everybody is to come here as a dry sponge and try to absorb as much as you can of things that you don't think maybe are important at the time, that will definitely change you. I have met so many people here. I've had conversations with people in industry. I've met people that are working for Apple. I've met people who are working for OpenAI, and conversations that you think, I don't know much about AI, and all of a sudden they say, well, no, your work on Dong minority architecture and how timber joints work is specifically related to how we think of AI. The sponge works in both ways. You're absorbing, but you're also giving. And so I think to all fellows that will come in the future, this idea that you've got to give and take, a little bit like the metaphor of the sponge. CASBS has an amazing legacy, and I'll be honest with you, I wasn't aware of that legacy before I came, and then it slowly sinks into you. The first thing that you realize is the presence of the ghosts. So you pick a room, my room was 51, You go in, you read the room, and you see all these names, and then you think about them, and then you double check them. Milton Friedman was in my room, 1957. Somehow it happens as a kind of a playful act, but there is something that when you're in that room late at night writing your book that really connects you with history. I don't know if it connects you spiritually or kind of in a ghost manner, but there is a connection to the fact that pieces of literature, pieces of academic research were written in these rooms. But the special one that really has a connection to me is that my father was a philosophy student, studied philosophy and studied under Karl Popper. And so I told him that I was going to CASBS, and he said, well, I think Karl Popper came here. And I said, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that he came. Not sure he went to America. Sure enough, room 25 is the room. And what did he write? He wrote the logic of scientific discovery in room 25. And then all of a sudden you find this legacy that connects you, your family, to something that goes beyond. And I think that's the discovering the legacy and the heritage of this place is something beautiful.